Hello, and welcome back to A Slightly Twisted Female. I am your host, Brittany RouXX. You might be here because you love me. You might be here because you hate me. You might be here because you... No, you either love me or hate me. I feel like that's like the two options. Anyway, we are back for another episode. And, as I was watching, I know I had to jump off the stream early yesterday, and I apologize for that. Ladies and gentlemen, where is my chat box? Let's take a minute to figure out where the fuck the chat box is. Hello, chat. I'm trying to figure out. Oh, I know what's probably going on. The docs is not available. Let's go ahead and add that onto the screen. Sorry about having to jump off the live stream yesterday. My daughter, needed me to pick her. So anyway, as I was saying, sorry about jumping off the stream early yesterday while we were going over the lesbiana debate between the conservative lesbians, aka classical liberal lesbians, and the far left queer theory lesbos. And it was not as out of control and catty and petty as the hysterical men's episode that featured some trans-identifying females who really served as NPCs to that debate. But it was, not all that groundbreaking. This one with, come on. Here we go. Oops. Can you guys hear me? It's like my chat looks pretty frozen right now, and I'm not sure. Oh, here we go. Alrighty, and we're back. Yeah, so anyway, I was going through, I had to hop off earlier yesterday, sorry about that. And I was going through it, and it's such a shame. First of all, the one, I guess, I don't know if she's Hispanic woman on the conservative side is super hot. If anybody knows who she is, tell her I said that. And then I thought this one was kind of hot too, because it's sort of my type. But my God, is she cringe. I mean, my God, is she cringe. And I'm sorry, I find something to be so just abysmally spineless, especially if you claim to be a woman, to not only be a woman and support this, but to be a lesbian woman and to support queer theory, and also a masculine gender non-conforming lesbian and support queer theory. It's the level of spinelessness that is needed is pretty impressive. So this woman has revealed herself to be an absolute jellyfish with a lack of spine or central nervous system, totally caping for men. She's obviously a full-on lesbian, but sits there and says how she found the right guy, the right trans-identifying male, and he happened to have a penis. We just have to figure it out, if he was a lovely human being. So stop it. Knowing that your community has been decimated by this. I mean, the lesbian community has been really hit the hardest by queer theory. And so to listen to this woman just cape for these men, I think is so despicable and shameful, and she should really be embarrassed. And the women who date her should take note that this woman is not going to stand up for you. This woman is not going to protect you. This woman is not going to have your back. She's going to sell you and your whole community out to the first Tim that comes around and gives her a pat on the head. So take note, ladies. But let's take a look. She brought up the sort of tried and true intersex trope during the conversation yesterday. And it's funny because I took my girls to gymnastics yesterday, and yes, they do gymnastics, and it's back to back. So it's 2 hours of me sitting and waiting for little girls to do some cartwheels. And I was reading about, I went on to this intersex. I was just trying to come up with different topics that I haven't really covered. And I found this intersex archives, and I was listening to these letters written by people with disorders of sexual development. And I want to first and foremost say, when we are talking about the so-called intersex issue, to be clear, intersex is a misnomer. Okay, that's an incorrect term. The term really is, and the accurate term is disorders of sexual development, or DSDs, because the term intersex implies that there is some sort of merging of the sexes, that you're sort of a little bit of both, and that's simply not true. These are disorders of sexual development. It does not erase, even when I hear people let me see if I can find it. There's Ben Shapiro, when I feel like this argument it's so overused, and I feel like so few gender criticals have really good comebacks for it. They really mostly say the same thing, like, well, it doesn't erase the binary just because we have these few, small examples and da 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 da. And it's no, it doesn't erase the binary because there's no speg, right? And it's also a mistake to when people say, well, how do you define male and female? People are like, oh, it's chromosomes. And even that is not accurate. It's not about chromosomes, okay? It's about gametes. It's about our, karyotype. So karyotype is your chromosomal makeup. Phenotype is the way your body sort of develops, and it all develops around gametes. So females are large gamete producers. So they produce ova, okay? They produce eggs. Males are small gamete producers. They produce spermatozoa, sperm, okay? So people either have the either ability or potential to produce one, or the ability or potential to produce the other. There is absolutely no existence of somebody who has the capacity to create both. That's why hermaphrodite is also a misnomer, and that's no longer used. A hermaphrodite is something that exists in other animal species, where an animal has the ability to develop both sets of gametes and can self-impregnate, right? That's just not the case in human beings. And, it's because, again, with the existence of a Y chromosome, activates the SRY gene at around, I think it's like the 6th week of development, where that's when you have the anti-Müllerian structure hormone activates, and that stops. So our sort of phenotypical baseline is female. That's why men have nipples, even though there's no real use for male nipples. And that's why a clitoris looks so similar to a penis. The way that we develop is you either develop into, so ovary, the things that either become ovaries or testicles are kind of based on the same structure. Labia and the scrotal sac, the ball sac, those are based on the same structure. The penis and the clitoris are based on the same structure. That's why any man who says that the female orgasm doesn't exist is not only an imbecile, but it's like he doesn't even understand his own biology. The fact that it starts at the same exact bundle of nerves. It just one grows out and one just becomes like a little button. Right. But I mean, the female clitoris is highly sensitive and absolutely capable of orgasm, and it's orgasms in pretty much the same way that a penis does. And yeah, so again, there is no such thing as an intersex person, but there are people with disorders of sexual development. And for any trans privilege activist who brings up the existence of people with DSDs as some sort of justification for why fully intact normal males with normal development are legitimate in claiming a female gender identity, or that they, should be, transitioned, is absolutely a fallacy. And it's important that we are able to really sort of confront this. Most people with DSDs want nothing to do with being used for the trope of trans, even though they've been lumped in, once they understand more about it. And another thing is it almost, if you listen to the experiences of people with disorders of sexual development, it actually even further proves how vile and evil and wrong childhood transition is, for example, right? And yeah. So I wanted to show this one thing, and I wanted to read a couple things from people with DSDs so we could talk about it. But first, let's listen to this spineless woman talk about how trans women are legitimately lesbians, and AG. So you're not only are you, it's not like you're just caping for homosexual transsexuals and maybe you kind of have an affinity for them because they're gay men and you're a gay, lesbian woman and you guys have had community. You're not even caping for homosexual transsexuals. You're keeping for autogynephiles who we know have high incidence of comorbidities with sadism, which means like sexual sadism is like, if you take the most dangerous and vicious sort of psychopath, not all psychopaths turn out to be like mass murderers. We have a lot of psychopaths amongst us. Some of them actually serve like important functions in society because they're able to be like singularly focused on a goal, and it makes good sometimes successful CEOs and good surgeons. Again, being a psychopath would be good if you were a surgeon, for example, because you don't have that sort of like empathy for other people, so you're not squirming when you have to cut into somebody, right? And it's like, it doesn't mean that you're evil. It's like you just don't empathize with the pain of other people. But sometimes it can be like a good thing, because it means you have like a steady hand. You're not like, to me, I couldn't do it. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I can't even, my boyfriend makes fun of me because I still have to like cover my eyes during violent scenes in movies. And people are like, well, how are you able to handle like the blood of like childbirth and things like that, and all that sort of icky stuff, if you can't handle seeing like trauma wounds? And I'm like, because I know that blood and those fluids are not trauma fluids, right? That's part of like their healthy, normal part of a process of something beautiful and wonderful, and there's we're working towards something positive. It's not like I'm looking at somebody's like mangled, traumatized tissue that was, harmed. I can't. I have such a hard time looking at people who have like severe injuries. I feel it in my soul. So anyway, it's kind of like good when you have somebody who's like a psychopath who doesn't feel that way. And I'm not saying that all people who are not squeamish are psychopaths, but I'm just saying there are such things as like, I think that there's some like useful applications to having low empathy, but the worst kind of people, the most dangerous personality type is somebody who's a psychopath, has like low empathy, and is also a sexual sadist. Sexually sadistic men are by far the most dangerous. These are the sorts of people who will, murder you for their own sexual pleasure. Like the type of men who pop a boner when they're committing violence, they have some sort of like connection between committing violence and acts of, heinous acts of aggression against other people and sexual arousal. Those are the most likely to commit some of the most heinous crimes that we've ever seen in history. And so the fact that autogynephiles have a high incidence of comorbidity with autogynephilia and sexual sadism just speaks to the core of just how truly dangerous these males are. I don't think that it can be understated. And for everybody who's like saying that just because I'm pointing out that homosexual, transsexual men also pose a risk to women, it does not mean that I am in any way like conflating it as an equal danger, right? Just because, AGPs are so dangerous doesn't negate the fact that homosexual, transsexuals are dangerous in their own way. I think those are the type of guys who are going to swing on you. Those are the type of men who will sit there and get very competitive with you about men. So like, they're the type of guys who like will happily sleep with your man behind your back, and people are like, oh, it's because you're jealous. No. The issue is the high likelihood and the high rates of sexually transmitted diseases, because anal sex has high rates of sexually transmitted diseases. So if this is like a man who's sleeping with men who are in committed relationships with women, it's not like these two men are in a committed relationship where they're being safe. We don't know who else this guy is sleeping with. He has low sexual, morals, and so does your man, obviously. And that's why it poses a risk to women. And I've read so many different accounts of these men who like pride themselves on doing things with, by like DL men who are in relationships with other women, and they'll come up and confront the woman and start fights and, get violent and stuff, and just it's all about like this sort of like sexual competition, and they get into it with women. Or if you clock one of these dudes, they think they have the right to swing on you because it's like a girl fight. And it's not, we just can't compare to the upper body strength of men. I don't care who you are. I'm a very strong woman. I'm like 5'9". I'm, like strong. There's not a lot of women I think that could like I can beat most women that I would go up against, but even weaker men who are smaller than me have such an edge on me, right? I that's why I don't pick fights with men. I'm not that dumb. So anyway, let's just take a look at so the intersex thing, right? Let's just hear what this woman has to say. It's so embarrassing. She should be so embarrassed of herself.
There's been women taken out of that have medals taken away in the Olympics and things like that because
a lesbian. Be a man. Now, if you want to transition to be a woman, that's awesome.
Yeah, I want to just give it like a whole.
I don't have to say that I'm attracted to them because I'm not.
Why do you say they're not women?
Because they're not. Why?
So this is so cringe. So they're talking about, like, the question was, would you date a trans woman? And like these women, it was weird too. I want to go back over this because Ariel Scarcella said that she would. So I guess she's bisexual. And she's like, well, as long as she has a vagina, basically she's saying she would date a post-op trans woman. And it's like, huh? So you're bisexual. So you don't really stand for the rights of lesbian women because you're sitting there saying that, like, it's you're still a lesbian. Like, you got to acknowledge that you're bisexual. You can't sit there and say that some lesbians will date some men and they're still lesbians, right? No, you're still sending a very dangerous message that you claim to be stand against. And that's not a vagina. That's just a mutilated penis. Like, it's a scrotal sac. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, but like, sex is about like two-way pleasure. Like, I get pleasure from like receiving pleasure and I get pleasure from giving pleasure. You know what I mean? Like, I have a lovely boyfriend who is very sexually generous, I must say. And it's like, I know for a fact, like, he gets all like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm just going to be like a little bit graphic for a minute and like personal, but like, he fucking eats the best pussy probably like on the face of the planet. And I'm sorry, I'm sure many of you have wonderful men who give really good head, and I high five you, but I would definitely take the bet that, man, my boyfriend probably like is like, I mean, top of his class. And it's like, but I say that to say it's like he enjoys it, you know what I mean? Like, he's like, gets like pleasure from giving pleasure. And I think that's like how most of us are, and it's like, could you imagine? It's like, so you have this like fake vagina that doesn't really feel anything. You can't do anything with it. It's not like you're going to make the person's eyes roll in the back of their head, because you're like doing something with them. It's like, it's all scarred. They can't feel anything. It's not a vagina. It's not a vagina. We need to go over that whole thing. But I wanted to deal with this one intersex topic first. But anyway, here we go.
Either, if you could, because our definitions of woman are different.
So you could say they're not female, but they're a woman, because being a woman is just a gender. It's not biological.
It's not the sex of the person. It's the gender identity.
Two separate
So
things.
here's where we have a disagreement, because I believe that sex and gender are the same thing. If you were born a man, you will always be a man. Now, if you want to transition to be a woman, that's awesome. You can be exactly who you want to be. That doesn't change your chromosomes. That doesn't change the hormones that your body naturally wants to produce. If you have to inject yourself with hormones to become something, you are not that thing.
What about intersex people? Humans.
So going right back to like the extremely small percentage, intersex people are completely valid.
But that's
Wait, Rory. Rory, I love you. Rory, first of all, and also Rory Marie, can you please stop reminding me that we met in Philadelphia? Why do you think I don't remember that? You were like super cool and we like hung out the whole day. So like, stop acting like I don't remember you. Of course I do. You said, girl, do not tell other women what your man can do. Let's see. It's just not a good idea. Take advice from an older woman. First of all, if my man, like, if telling other women what my man... No, I don't think that's true, because a lot of women have men who don't prioritize their pleasure at all. And a lot of women think that that's normal. They don't know that it's not normal. They think that, like, it's all about getting their man off, and that's the primary goal of sex. You know what I mean? And I think it's also important to reiterate the fact, I mean, we're both adults, you know what I mean? And if my man is easy to steal, then you can have him. Anybody can have him. You know what I mean? If you can come and seduce my man and take him away, then that's your man. That's not mine. You know what I mean? But you keep saying, do not tell other women what your man can or cannot do. It's not a good idea, honey. Take advice from older women. No, I disagree. I disagree. I don't know why. Anyway.
Much more common than people realize, especially when you're a woman like myself that produces more testosterone
All lesbians.
than most women. No, no. You don't no.
Yours is even more than normal?
Yes, especially athletes, just masculine women. There's women that suffer from PCOS, I think,
Yes.
in it
Yep.
correctly. There's been women taken out of that have medals taken away in the Olympics and things like that because their testosterone is higher.
Okay, so the case that she's talking about, like the whole women having medals taken away because their testosterone, she's probably talking about the case of Caster Semenya, who was an Olympic, I think, track athlete who I guess was raised as a girl and turned out to be intersex. And they're like, oh, but it's really a woman. And a lot of these trans privilege activists always point to this guy as being like, oh, see, this is a woman. You know, it was a black woman who was, you know, and it's like they always say how, like, you know, black women are like more, I've heard so many racist arguments, how it's like, you know, being putting up like boundaries around women's sports and just women's bathrooms and spaces will disproportionately affect black women. It's like, I guess the argument is that they're like, you know, seen as more masculine and they have like higher levels of testosterone and all this stuff. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? And I think a lot of that mythology comes from this case of Caster Semenya. It's this guy who was raised as a woman, and there was this big argument, and like he just, you know, everybody's like, is that really a woman? Da, 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 da. And they like argue that it was, and everybody was being, you know, racist and bigoted and da, 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 da. Come to find out that he's, you know, has disorders of sexual development, and then went on to father 2 children. Has 2 children, right? As a man with a woman, like 2 biological children. Like, let's see if there's like a really like let's see. Yeah, and they're all still calling her. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. Like. Again, because he had high levels of testosterone, everybody was like, no, but it's a woman and she has, you know, intersex DSD, a disorder of sexual development, and you're bigoted, and this just goes to show how having these like requirements, you know, in the Olympics is bigoted against trans people and all this stuff, you know, because it black, you know, women are disproportionately. Come to find out, it's a whole dude who makes healthy spermatozoa that was healthy enough to father 2 children with his wife, right? 2 biological children. So help me understand how that means that this is a woman. Just because I guess the parents did legitimately raise him as a woman. It's not like he later was like, I'm going to like transition, but still, it's not working. Let me see if I can find like a good article really quick. Let me see. Caster Semenya. All right. Whatever. We can look that. I would have brought it up. We can look it up. But yeah. So that's kind of what this woman is referring to. And it kind of actually kills your argument even more. Let's see.
It's much more common that those things occur, like especially with intersex humans, than people realize. So I'm just wondering, how do you feel about that? Because you touched on a very small percentage earlier with the kids, right? So can we?
That's fair. Sure.
Yeah, can we just? I just want to know how you feel about that.
I have no issue with intersex individuals. Again, we're going back to our orientation and our preference. If I was attracted to someone who might be intersex, that's great. That's cool. Yeah. I'm not. Or maybe I've just never experienced someone like that before, and that's fine too. They're not invalid as humans. They're not invalid in their identity, but I don't have to change my attraction and force an attraction just to help fulfill someone else.
It's not the attraction that I was wondering about. It was if they need to take, something to balance out their body to be able to present as they're seeing. How do you feel? Are you saying that they're not how they present because of that? And that's what I was asking.
That's a really interesting question. In the case of someone being born intersex, which given that is not something that I have very deep knowledge on, and I'm going to go ahead and put that out there. I don't have, very extended knowledge on people who are intersex, but I don't see an issue with that. I really don't. Like, if you have to take hormones to present a certain way, have your voice go up, go down, grow body hair, not grow body hair, okay, then you are forcing a change upon yourself. And that's simply the reality of the situation.
Or just balancing out the body to be healthy.
Okay, so we could also put this, say, cis men who, as they age, start taking testosterone replacement therapy, TRT. That doesn't make them not men. That's just balancing their hormones. So yes, I can understand.
So then So that's what I'm asking you to think about when you think of the trans community as well. You get what I'm saying?
It's a really interesting thought. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just that's all I wanted you to do is just consider something that's often missed.
Sure. In the case of intersex, absolutely, I can see your point. In the case of assigned female at birth, assigned male at birth, transitioning, that's a completely different ballgame.
Okay, so, all right, hold on. I just found, all right. So this is important to talk about the Caster Semenya thing. So listen to how the media discussed this man and lied about this man. And again, they were saying, see, look, and it's like the argument is from these trans privilege activists, like this woman with the dreads is like, or with the locks is like, it disproportionately affects, women who are athletes and who have naturally high levels of testosterone. And it's like, no, see, come to find out, this is not a case of a female with naturally high levels of testosterone. No female is producing this level of testosterone. Why? Because this is actually a man. And if you read the mainstream media articles about this guy, you would have no idea about it. But let's see. Hold on. And it's like, oh God. Well, let's read this one. All right. So Caster Semenya isn't just fighting for herself. Okay. On June 30th, 2019, South African runner Caster Semenya, already a 3-time world champion, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. So let's see. So has, won a bunch of medals. It says Semenya was convinced that the fall of Doha, she would break the 800-meter world record while running a 4th straight world championship title. Semenya never got the chance. She still hasn't run the 800-meter race. Hold on for a second. Let me just make my thing. She still hasn't run in the 800-meter race. In fact, since that beautiful day in Palo Alto, a month later, a Swiss court held up a 2018 regulations from the IAAF, track and field world governing body, now named World Athletics, barring Semenya and other athletes with, quote, differences of sex development from running in certain races. And I'm sure it's not all DSDs. It's DSDs where you're a male, okay? And it's all disingenuous how they report on this. Running from certain races, including the 800 meter, unless they lowered their testosterone levels to a certain threshold via medical intervention. And again, these are the same requirements that they use for trans-identifying males. Oh, as long as you can reduce, as if they haven't had a lifetime in which testosterone has impacted their development. Right? Oh, if we just artificially reduce it for a couple of months, that's good enough. No, absolutely not. But she was not able to defend her 800-meter gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics, and odds are Semenya, 32, has run her last Olympic race. Let's see. It's like so much boring. Like, okay. Let's see. Hold on. The one with it where he talks about his Caster Semenya father. This one. Okay. So his father says, she's my little girl, says father. And again, this is a little bit different because the parents did raise him as a woman, as a girl, right? But it doesn't change the fact that it's actually male. The father of a woman's world champion athlete today angrily denied accusations that the teenager was secretly born a man, insisting she is my little girl. Castor, of course, because that would mean that like all of the fame and glory and money that they've all got from, you know, sending this guy to the Olympics and winning all these gold medals would all be redacted. Of course, he's going to sit there and defend this. This brought a lot of, prosperity to the family to uphold this lie. Caster Semenya, 18, is undergoing gender test. Oh, and so they made this guy undergo these like biological testings to prove that he's a female. And everyone's like, oh, that's just so invasive and horrible. And how could you do that? And that's what it's going to, that's what all these other things are going to do. And it's going to humiliate these women who just have disorders of development. And it's like, no, okay? Because, and this is the case that they often point to. Come to find out, he fathered children later. It just shows how little we know about actual DSDs. But after beating her rivals by a huge margin to win the gold medal in World Championship 800 meters in Berlin. Yeah, I wonder how that happened. Family, friends, and teachers at her home in South Africa recalled how Semenya played football with boys, wore trousers instead of skirts, and endured teasing by her peers, but all asserted that she definitely is a woman. Yeah, except he wasn't. Let's see. Jacob Semenya, her father told Southern newspaper, she is my little girl. I raised her and I've never doubted her gender. She is a woman, and I repeat that 1,000,000 times. He attacked his daughter's critics, saying, for the first time, South Africans have something to be proud of, and detractors are already shouting wolf. It's unfair. I wish they would leave my daughter alone. Of course, he's going to sit there and defend this because it's about, they've gotten local celebrity, you know what I mean? International attention and money and opportunities that this, little family from South Africa would have never in 1,000,000 years been able to access or even dream of. So of course they're all defending it. And of course, the whole town is defending it. Athletics World Governing Body has asked South Africa officials to conduct a gender verification test. The test, which takes weeks to complete, requires a physical medical evaluation and includes reports from a gynecologist, endocrinologist, psychologist, an internal medicine specialist, and an expert on gender. There has been bewilderment and indignation over the controversy in Fairley, the impoverished village of Limpopo province. Yeah, again, it's like the whole town is all like, just defined by this. Who's Riley? I love when Riley called. Is that a detransitioner? Let's see. Impoverished village and playing field. She lived with her grandmother while at secondary school and grew up without electricity or running water. Her grandmother said, I know she's a woman. I raised her myself. She called me after and told me that they think she's a man. What can I do when they call her a man when she's not really a man? It is God who made her look that way. The 80-year-old added that Semenya has been teased when growing up because of her boyish looks. Another one that, if anybody's seen Brittany Griner, like the photos of Brittany Griner, also kind of shocking and definitely looks like a man with her shirt off and things like that. The athlete's mother said doubts about her gender were motivated by jealousy. Of course, you're just jealous. So it says the 80-year-old added that Semenya had been teased when growing up because of her boyish looks. If the teasing hurt her, she kept it hurt to herself. And the athlete's mother said doubts about her daughter's gender were motivated by jealousy. Isn't that what we're always told? You're just jealous. Like, no, you're just ridiculous and unfair. Oh, her name's Dorcas. Oh, sorry. Dorcas Semenya. Sorry. Dorcas Semenya told the Star, if you go to my home village and ask any of my neighbors, they would tell that Mokagi is a girl. How the fuck would they know? Are they all inspecting this guy's genitals? Yeah, women just need to train harder. Like, bro. They know because they helped raise her. People can say whatever they like, but the truth will remain. A picture emerged of Semenya as a tomboy who transgressed the rigid gender roles of South Africa's. So they're acting like it's like all this big revolutionary thing that this guy. Often I would ask her why she kept kept playing soccer and with boys. She said, it's because I like it. With her, everything was about soccer. Semenya was the only girl on the football team in Fairleigh. Her former teacher spoke with pride about her prowess, but admitted they had not always been certain of her gender. So even the teachers are like, are we sure this is a girl? Eric Modbita, head of the secondary school where Semenya was pupil from 2004 until last year, says, I had never seen her in a skirt or a dress, always trousers. Initially, we doubted her gender, but eventually we realized it was a girl. No, you were right. We've seen her birth certificate in her file from primary school. At about the age of 16, she started to associate with other girls and try different hairstyles, but she never developed breasts. Morris Gilbert, and it's the same thing with Brittany Griner. I don't know if Brittany Griner, that whole thing is kind of weird too. We're very proud of her and what she's achieved. Her coach laughed off the allegation. Of course the coach did. It was a lot like, what's his name? The swimming guy. It's like Leah Thomas, you know. It's like, of course, the coach adored Leah Thomas, had his back. It's the first time Penn women's swim team actually like was doing anything. Laughed off the allegation, saying that Semenya fielded constant questions about whether she was a boy from younger athletes when training. She has to explain that she can't help the fact that her voice is so gruff. Has anyone heard Brittany Griner talk? Brittany Griner is another, I was just saying, is really a girl. The remarkable thing is that Castor, and again, they always say, oh, it causes, you know, humiliation because of you guys. Actually, no. Actually, now, the only reason why everybody has to be on edge about this stuff is because of the rabid, hardcore trans privilege activists trying to, you know, deceive everybody and force this down everyone's throats. Now we've got to be like, oh crap, we have to like really, you know, lock down and you know, really like make sure that we can protect sex segregated spaces because of you guys. You know, it's like you guys cannot take accountability for anything, can you? This was never a concern until you started with the rabid pro-trans stuff, okay? So no, we didn't come up with this. We just realized that we now have to defend boundaries because you guys can't respect them. I just think he's a man. I know, it's funny. Semenya had been, she has to explain that she can't help the fact that her voice is so gruff and that she really is a girl. The remarkable thing is that Castor remains completely calm and never loses her dignity when she's questioned about her gender. We condemn, and then down here, Semenya also received the backing of the governing African National Congress, I'm sure, which called on South Africans to rally around our golden girl. The ANC says, we condemn the motives of those who have made it their business to question her gender due to her physique and running style. Such comments can only serve to portray women as being weak. Now, how dare you? Women aren't weak. We are different. We are different. We are a different phenotype. So it has nothing to do with being weak. We're just, you know, men are weak compared to gorillas, right? Does that mean that they're just weak as men? No. You know, gorillas would destroy any adult human male physically. It's so like, what's your point? That doesn't mean that men like are weak compared to, you know, them. Women are not weak. We just aren't men. That's what it is. Yeah, and like, no, and listen, I empathize with I mean, I feel like his parents kind of knew and was like realizing that like they could kind of, it was just, at least at a minimum, it's delusion, and part of the delusion is because of all the benefits came with being able to keep up the charade of this guy being, rather than being like a weak man, you know, their child could be a strong woman and smash female records, you know what I mean, and bring a bunch of pride to their little village and stuff like that. Semenya herself is said to be bemused by the speculation. She said to me she doesn't see what the big deal is about. She is giving, she believes it is a God-given talent and she will exercise. Of course, what's the big deal? Just women who have been working their whole lives for something and men who take it away. Why do you care so much? It's like, quiet down. Dun, 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 dun. So, yeah. So anyway, so let's see. Castor, Semenya, let's see, and then Mumsnet. Of course, you can thank the only place where you can actually get like the truth is like these actual the actual gender critical thing. So this is from Mumsnet, and this was in 2023. Yeah, let's start. So let's see. Caster Semenya biography. Wonder how much information will be in this book. So I guess there's a biography coming out about him. The press release is already thick with hyperbole. So again, they're still trying to say that. God, hold on. Sorry. Still trying to say that. See, like, what? Let's see. Wonder how much misinformation will be in this book. The press release is already thick with hyperbole. Publisher Helen Conford and senior commissioning editor Lindsay Prince. So let's see. North American Rights. Hold on. The publisher said, banned from competing in the sport she loved and trained her whole life for, Olympic and world champion Caster Semenya is finally ready to share the vivid and heartbreaking story of how the world came to know her name. Thrust into the spotlight at just 18 years old after winning the Berlin World Championships in 2009, Caster's win was quickly overshadowed by criticism and speculation about her body, and how quickly became the center of debate, which she continues today about her gender in sports. Okay, Semenya said, my life has had its struggles, but it has mostly been a joy. Through my example, I want to educate, enlighten, and inform about how some of the world are born to, I mean, no offense, look at this guy. Like, are you kidding me? Like, stop it. This book is her setting the record straight and owning her entire story. It's the unflinching in its honesty and empowering in its tone. And you mean completely dishonest? And captures the full scope of her life, from a little girl running in the dust to record breaking athlete running to be free. Alrighty. I've always admired Caster, and as a feminist, I felt I needed to support her as a woman being attacked for looking too masculine. I read reports of how she had been observed a female at birth and raised entirely as a girl. I'm a little more unsure now, and I don't think anyone knows how to manage cases with... No, yeah. This is the accurate one. Caster is not female. Caster has XY chromosomes and has a disorder of sexual development that only affects males. Sure, raised as female, but if Caster had not been born in a British hospital, Caster's parents would have been properly advised that Caster is male and should be brought up as such. So let's see. I might write an opposing book. Someone says, Hatch should have announced they've acquired the publishing rights to Not Bad, considering Searing's new book cataloging the scandal of Caster Semenya's decade-long dominance as a male in women's sport. Robbed will be published in late 2023, subtitled Stories of the Women Whose Lives Were Ruined by a Male. It documents Semenya's rise from running free in the dirt to crushing opponents using male advantage. It covers the discovery that Semenya is a 46 XY karyotype male with 5 alpha reductase deficiency, which has gone through male puberty, and the efforts to keep that information hidden from the world. It records the heartbreaking stories of all the women who missed out on medals, sponsorship, Diamond League prize money as a result of having to compete against a male. The vilification of Lindsay Sharp for speaking the truth is especially sad. Told with captivating speed and, most importantly, facts, Rob documents the lunacy of world athletics having to go to court to prove that males have sporting advantage over women, the complicity of media in misrepresenting the reality about Semenya, and the ongoing gaslighting from Semenya's PR team and insisting that Semenya is, quote, a woman with naturally high testosterone levels instead of a man who stole livelihoods from women. Not bad considering, said, maybe finally after reading my book, people will stop lying, but I highly doubt it. Well done. That is hilarious. Brittany's not a man. Brittany Griner did not give birth to any children. Okay. Brittany Griner's ex-wife had children. So yeah, no. Let's see. Hold on. Brittany Griner. Let's see if they're, hold on. And it's like, I mean, she could sit there and say they're her, hold on, let's see. We'll have to figure out, let's see, everything to know. Let's see let's see, the whole Brittany Griner thing. So, hold on. Brittany Griner was the issue is cost of caring for the couple's preemie twin infants, Ava Simone and Soleil Diem, who were born at 24 weeks gestation. Johnson became pregnant with the girls via in vitro fertilization during her brief marriage with Griner. The twins are yeah, just talking about like their the woman, her ex-wife carried the children through in vitro. Okay, DNA testing was ordered for the girls. Johnson requested Griner send a mobile DNA testing service to her home, alleging the girls were unable to go outside due to health issues. Griner said she complied. What is that? Wait, DNA testing. However, the next day she saw a link to a photo Johnson posted showing the babies were taken to a basketball game. Why would we need DNA tests? They're two women. What? DNA testing was ordered for the girls. Johnson said Griner was the one who pushed to have the two babies, even though the parents were warned by doctors about higher health risks during the fertilization process. Griner went on to dispute Johnson's claims, said that she wanted babies with or without someone. That's the whole thing is just a little bit odd. So I don't know about that. But Brittany Griner, and sorry, I didn't mean to have like kind of like a rude response to you, woman. Or Brittany, let's just hear Brittany Griner. Hold on. It's another one, right? So just listen to this. Can you guys hear me now? I'm sorry. Do you hear me now? Okay. Yeah. So Susie Glucksman says, sorry, my bad. Susie Glucksman said, I read her as a woman, masculine woman, but I could be wrong. I just think that because we've had issues of males with disorders of sexual development who do infiltrate and just, there are so many trans identifying men who claim to be intersex just to like justify wanting to be trans. And it's like, so scolding women for now being on edge. I'm sorry. So many women have lost too many opportunities. And honestly, we wouldn't be feeling this way if it weren't for how rabid and disingenuous you guys have become and how much, the trans privilege activists lie to us, lie to everybody, and have pushed this hardcore rhetoric that has cost women so much. So many opportunities, so much money, reputation, so many different things, right? So it's like, no, you guys did this. You did this. And I'm sorry, but there are a lot of people who will cheat. And I do think that there are a lot of, men with disorders of sexual development. I understand maybe they thought they were women at first. Brittany Griner, 6'9", Did you hear? Yeah, it's like, I don't know. There's just like a lot of different. That's she like routinely goes shirtless, and I guess nobody is concerned. Her hips do look a little bit gynecoid, so I don't know. Let's see. Hold on, I gotta let my dog come out. Hold on. All right, so. And also, just going back to the Caster Semenya thing, I wanted to take a look at the type of the type of disorder of sexual development that he has is this. So let's read about it, right? And let's see, does this make someone a woman? Again, you cannot be both a woman and a man. Intersex is not, it is a misnomer. So let's just look about, it's something that only men get. Okay, so it says 5-alpha reductase deficiency is an important cause of 46XY disorder, disorder of sex development. Again, that's any 46XY disorder of sex development means that it is a DSD that only men get. Only men. Okay, so Caster Semenya is a man. The fact that it's been determined that he has this DSD, it's like case closed. He's a man. But they're still trying to release it and act like, oh, this was some act of bravery. And this man standing up against, all these hateful, jealous, bigoted women. Them calling us jealous is so vile and disgusting. And I'm sorry, but then you have this like spineless lesbian during the Jubilee debate who's trying to like point to these as like, oh, see, this is why we should just accept men in our spaces and accept men as women just because they say so, because there's women who get stripped of their medals, yet you clearly don't care about all the women who lose out on sporting opportunities, scholarships, medals, prize money, sponsorship opportunities because of men like this, and you're not worried about them, right? I'm sorry, but there are going to be these extreme outliers, and unfortunately, because of how much the public trust has been violated, because of cheaters and liars like this, it's the same reason no one cries when we have to do drug testing, because people do like to cheat and they like to use performance enhancing drugs, right? Being a male is like a performance enhancing drug. Okay, so I'm sorry, but no, like if you want to compete, we have to make sure that it's fair. The alpha reductase deficiency is an important cause of 46XY disorder of sex development. Timely diagnosis and proper management by a multidisciplinary team can lead to a favorable outcome. Sex assignment should be deferred until puberty because spontaneous virilization occurs and the patient can engage in decision-making progress. Okay, this is important. And this is important. For example, in this, what can happen is men with, and I believe this is the one, the 5-alpha reductase deficiency. This is the one where men are born and it looks like they have no penis. And I think it looks like that their like labia are like not or the scrotal sac is not fully fused. So it looks like a vagina. And so that could be why the parents thought it was a vagina. However, it actually, corrects itself later in life, and that's why they say you have to really that's why they say trying to correct DSDs at birth, where like, okay, say it's like, oh, it just looks like an enlarged clitoris, and they used to cut that off. They say, A, you got to stop doing that, because B, even if it is just an overly enlarged clitoris, why are you cutting off such a vibrant, important, sensitive piece of the human body that still is going to function for pleasure, even if it just looks weird? It's so unnecessary. But also in men who have this 5-alpha reductase deficiency, the 45XY DSD will actually develop a penis during puberty. And not only do they develop a penis, but they can actually develop virility, meaning they can actually go on to be fertile. Okay, which clearly is the case in Caster Semenya. I believe that he probably had a micropenis that they mistook for a clitoris. Okay, and he probably had ambiguous genitalia and ambiguous scrotal sac that maybe wasn't fully fused, or whatever the case may be, that looked like it was labia. Come to find out that he actually was a male and probably developed a penis during puberty, which is what happens, right? So 5-alpha reductase deficiency is a genetic disorder causing 46XY disorder of sex development, DSD. Typical clinical feature is a male with yeah, exactly. This is exactly right. I was reading about a lot of this stuff. Typical clinical feature is a male with ambiguous genitalia or under virilization at birth. But again, it says spontaneous virilization occurs during puberty. Here we report 3. That's why they say you should not go on to assign. That's why it's important. They say do not assign these people, these boys, little boys, as females, because they will develop as men. It'll happen later and on a different trajectory than most men. Alpha reductase deficiency is a genetic disorder causing 46XY disorder of sex development. Typical clinical feature is a male, okay, I already read all that, with ambiguous genitalia or under virilization at birth. Okay, so 5-alpha, here, let me make myself smaller. 5-alpha reductase is an enzyme responsible for the conversion of testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. So DHT is it's like the testosterone that really makes you grow into something, like makes you like really masculinize you in androgen target tissues deficient. So it makes sense that so an androgen target tissue would be something like the penis or, musculature, things like that. So it makes sense that, again, early on, the penis is not able to, it doesn't get the DHT because it's not converting properly. Deficiency of this enzyme results in intrauterine abnormal male sexual development and also during puberty. This is a rare genetic condition with autosomal recessive inheritance. Mutations in SRD5A2 causes this disorder. Affected males are born with undervirilization of external genitalia or 46XY disorder of sexual development, DSD. The Wolffian structures exist and are normally differentiated, but the appearance of the external genitalia may range from normal female to undervirilized male at birth. And to, hold on. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so again, Müllerian structures, to be clear, Müllerian structures are female genitalia, particularly internal female genitalia, like the fallopian tubes, the ovaries, the uterus. Wolffian ducts are the embryonic structures that form the male internal genitalia. Their development is therefore essential to male fertility. So it's the prostate, for example, the vas deferens, which is where like the sperm comes through, seminal, like the prostate, that internal stuff where the semen comes through. Wolffian structures exist and are normally differentiated, but the appearance. So the fact that Wolffian structures exist, that's what's essential for fertility, right? So in the case of people with 5-alpha reductase, meaning that they have what is needed to be fertile. It's the external genitalia that it's affected, and it's because of the body's inability, because of the lack of this enzyme that converts testosterone into to the dihydrotestosterone, with DHT, which is like the really masculinizing testosterone, means that the penis is not developing. However, it often spontaneously corrects itself during puberty. And then at which point they go through a normal male puberty and fully develop as a male, even to the point of being fertile, right? And there are, even in very mild DSDs, causes infertility in people. And the fact that this one doesn't even cause infertility just shows just how fully male and intact this Castor Semenya guy was. And it's understandable why maybe early on, it looked like this was female ambiguous genitalia, but no, once the thing is, the father knew and the mother knew. Once this guy went through went through puberty and it became clear that this is a man, they all knew, right? It's just that, again, by 18, he was already competing in the Olympics, which means that by, 16, 15, when he was going through puberty and stuff, he was already well on his way. And they already knew that he had something, and he was already competing against women, smashing records, well on his way to the Olympics. They were not about to derail that. See, children with this condition, Wolffian structures exist and are normally differentiated, but the appearance of the external genitalia may range from normal female to under-virilized male at birth. Children with this condition are usually raised as female, and during puberty, they develop some male sex characteristics like voice change and increased muscle mass. Most cases of this condition are reported from countries with high rates of consanguine marriages, meaning like people within the same family, like Papua New Guinea, Dominican Republic, Turkey, and Lebanon. And again, he's from South Africa. The prevalence of this condition in the general population is not known. Here we report 3 cases of 5-alpha reductase deficiency in a family in Iran. Let's see how some of these turned out. Oops. Oh my God, I'm going to have to cut that out. I didn't think they were going to have an actual picture there. Okay, never mind. So yes. I should have looked through that. All right, so here we go. So I say all that to say, again, the existence of disorders of sexual development do not in any way, shape, or form justify arguments, the pro-trans arguments. And so woman says, I don't think they should cut off any baby's genitals, including circumcision. No, I'm totally anti-circumcision also. I think that the foreskin plays an important role. Part of the reason why they started circumcising was actually to reduce the incidence of masturbation once, kids reach puberty. There's a lot of reasons that have nothing. People say, oh, it's cleaner and stuff. It is very simple to clean foreskin. There is... like men become very desensitized. The foreskin is supposed to protect the head of the penis. And when you don't have foreskin, it's constantly rubbing on things. It becomes almost calloused. It develops like a callus. It's not as sensitive. That's why men need to be men who are circumcised end up being a lot more aggressive sexually to get the same sort of stimulation that they, would have been able to have if they hadn't been circumcised. So I also am against circumcision. Okay, so anyway, this is from an Intersex website. It is an archive of people who have disorders of sexual development. The website itself is defunct, but it has some really good letters, archive letters and stuff like that. I need to pause the stream for 1 second because I gotta pee, but I'm gonna pause it. I'll be right back. By Angela Moreno. All right, so it says, doctors have come from distant cities just to see me, stand over my bed, disbelieving what they're seeing. They say I must be one of the wonders of God's own creation, Natalie Merchant. There was never any reason to suspect anything strange. I appeared female when I was born in 1972, and I was assigned and raised as a girl. When I was 12, I started to notice that my clitoris, that wonderful location of pleasure for which I had no name, but to which I had grown quite attached, had grown more prominent. At least that's how I perceived it. I can't remember whether I thought anything about it. I just remember that I began to notice it. I'm sure that it was at least 3 months after I'd taken note that my mother caught a glimpse of me as I bathed one day after returning from a dance studio. She tried very hard not to let on how alarmed she was, but of course a 12-year-old girl child just senses these things. When the pediatrician examined me the next day, she too was obviously alarmed. She referred me to a female pediatric endocrinologist at the University of Illinois Medical School. Exactly 1 month later, I was admitted to the Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago for surgery. They told me a little bit about the part where they were going to remove my ovaries because they suspected cancer or something like that. They didn't mention the part where they were going to slice off my clitoris. All of it. I guess the doctors assumed I was as horrified by my outsized clit as they were, and there was no need to discuss it with me. After a week's recovery in the hospital, we all went home and barely ever spoke of it again. As for the assertion that doctors now consistently provide sophisticated counseling for the intersex child and family, my experience does not reflect that good intention. First of all, my doctors made a traumatizing hospitalization even more traumatizing. Bye, guys. Even more traumatizing by putting on a show for parades of earnest young residents with a "you're a freak but we're compassionate" grins on their faces. This all without nurses or my parents anywhere around, which I think is so sick. Anybody who watched the I Am Jazz thing, when Dr. Marcy Bowers, again, who's this trans-identified male who totally mutilated Jazz Jennings, and is talking about how, like, oh, we're going to make sure that you have, like, a porn star vagina and stuff like that. They're sitting there talking, and, like, while he's, like, undressed in front of them, you have a whole camera crew, all these people looking at this child's genitals as if that's not, like, deranged, you know, and broadcasting it on television, like, sorry. Second, I know now from my parents that the pediatric endocrinologist repeatedly advised them that I did not need to know the truth. They told my parents some horror story about a girl like me who had peeked at her file once while the doctor was out of the room and then unalived herself. My mother asked the doctor specifically if they thought I would benefit from any type of counseling. They discouraged her from pursuing it. So sad. That's what passed for emotional support among the Children's Memorial Hospital Intersex Specialist Team in Chicago of 1985. Again, if it doesn't show, I mean, how much the medical, like, we assume that, like, oh, we're so advanced medically and stuff like that. And you have to remember, too, it's like men have been in control of you know, the medical profession for so long. And there's so many, like, human considerations. Like, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should do something. And there's so many assumptions that are made and experiments that are performed. And people who just, you know, it's like they understand maybe how, like, the body works, but they don't understand these, like, broader implications about having some of these disorders and things. I mean, there's so much botched mess in our history with medicine and science and even, like, you know, the psychological field and things like that. So this unwavering trust in experts that we have is it's so absurd. Let's see. I'm now 24. I spent the last 10 years in a haze of disordered eating and occasional depression. My struggle with bulimia has been an all-consuming, although mostly secret part of my life, and I now believe it represents my attempts to express the fear, shame, rage, and intense body hatred that I have felt since the result of, until now, unspeakable assault that I experienced under the guise of medical treatment. I do have some clitoral sensation. I sometimes masturbate, and I do experience what I call an orgasm, some faint muscular contractions. But response is unreliable and nothing like the tremendous sensitivity and wonderful juicy orgasms I had before the clitoral surgery. Oh, it's so sad. God, it's so sad. God, we're robbing children of so much, and it's because of our weird, like, we're getting so disconnected from our bodies. I'm sorry, but it's like the more that we spend time online and we spend time in these virtual worlds, and the more that we become so addicted to technologies and artificial stuff. We have these artificial breast milks so we don't actually have to breastfeed and bond with our babies. You know, we have these artificial ways of birthing so we don't actually have to go through pain. We over-medicalize everything. We disconnect from the pain of our bodies, the experiences of our bodies, we have cars so we never have to walk anymore. We're just so out of touch. The only type of, we're learning about sex through pornography, and it's like, this is what happens when we lose touch with ourselves. You know, we lose touch with our bodies and our babies, and we allow these doctors to do these horrific things. As a parent, listen to your gut instinct. You are your best advocate for your child. It was even me, like, I didn't really have a strong sense against circumcision But it was like when I had my babies and they came around and kept asking me about it. And I just remember being like, no, it's just something was like, no, I don't need you to cut off. And I was like, is there like a medical reason where they could be harmed later? And it was like, the answer is basically no. And I was just like, no, I'm okay. And they kept, I mean, my God, me saying no to circumcision, like, it's like they were like, they like could not like process and compute. And I was like, no. And they came back around, they're like, you sure? You know, because we can do it. And I was like, no, I already said no. The third time they came around, I was like, put it in the chart that I said no. The answer is no. If you come back in my room, literally came in like 6 different times, had like 2 other people come, but I was getting like pissed by the end. I was like, if you fucking come into my room again, like I'm really gonna cause a scene. You're not gonna touch my son. You're not, like, get away from us. You know, and like they got so mad that I was like co-sleeping with him in the thing. I wouldn't put him in the bucket. And I was like, I grew this baby for 40 weeks. Fuck you talking about? The only place that he needs to be is like right here with me. And that's when I was like, I'll never come back to a hospital again. I had 1 hospital birth, never again. And then I found like the midwifery community, and like none of them do circumcision and stuff like that. And then I learned like way more about it, and I was like, thank fucking God. I just listen to your instincts. Stop letting these people talk you out of things. You know what I mean? And I was just so fucking grateful. Let's see. I do have some they cut off her clitoris, which I guess ended up being like a mini penis or whatever the fuck, and it's like, it's just so sad. Why? So that we can fit into this, like, and again, it's the same idea of like the transgender surgery, so we can force gender non-conforming people into some box so that everyone can feel comfortable. Somebody who has maybe a different sexuality, different personality. Same thing with these DSD surgeries. It's really just to make other people feel comfortable and just to assimilate, you know? But if we're able to actually expand our understanding and our definition of what some men are like, you know, what men are like and what women are like, and it's not as narrow as we've always told ourselves. Same thing with genitalia. You know, the genitalia has a wide range of looks, and I get so fucking disgusted and annoyed when I hear like literal adult men who will like, there was like on... Some girl was advertising her OnlyFans on Instagram, and I saw it the other day, and it was like cringe. Like, she kept trying to do like upskirt, totally inappropriate for Instagram, was doing these like upskirt shots, and you could see part of her like vulva, like her outer like labia majora, and it was hairy. I guess it was like one of those things where it's like hairy, and the amount of comments of men being like, oh, gross, and some guy was like, this is officially the most disgusting thing. First of all, the woman was beautiful. Her vulva looked totally normal, had a gorgeous body, and this one guy was like, this is officially the most disgusting thing I've ever seen on the internet, and I have, you know, dead bodies like showing up on my feed. And I went and I was like, I need to see what this guy looks like. He had a toddler daughter and like an infant son, and it was like a whole family page, and I'm like, all of these men are like, oh, it's disgusting, they're like, yeah, it looks like hairy roast beef, and ooh. And it just goes to show again, when we have men whose only experience with like female, you know, genitalia is porn, and remember, women are going and getting their labia sliced off to look like porn stars, and we have these porn actresses who, you know, again, who have like surgically modified genitals, or, you know, genitals that fall within a very narrow range of appearance. And it's so bizarre to me. It's like you demand, and they're like all like, yeah, you know, we've evolved beyond having hairy vaginas, you know, like clean yourself up, and how about you, like, you know, not be so disgusting and shave and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, the fuck? And I was like, what, you need your, like, vulvas to look like, what, prepubescent? You need it to look prepubescent? Is that better for you? You know, women who have, like, thick, you know, like, inner labia, and they're like, oh, it's like roast beef curtains and stuff like that. First of all, it's, like, larger inner labia, it, like, grips the dick. So it's like, you know, but again, it's like you're just also programmed and from pornography and just so out of touch. You know what I mean? And it's like female, you know, labias and female, you know, vulvas come in such a variety of colors and shapes and sizes and different things, and it's actually like, you know, beautiful and special, and you're so, you just like, it's just sad. It's just sad how programmed you are, you know, like what a lemming you are. And I even remember as a kid being like insecure about how my vulva looked, and it's all because of my exposure to pornography at a young age, you know. And it's like, it was so sad that I remember even looking up getting like like labiaplasty, thank fucking God. And then later I was like, no, I probably lose sensation, so that's out. And like, it's like later as I got older, and like thankfully, you know, I like my boyfriend in college was like, just thought I was perfect, you know what I mean? And it's like the men that I've been with, like, thank God, and I wouldn't be with somebody who's like a total, you know. But if like, you know, it's like it's really sad to hear how some men are, and it's like reassuring to see that some men really and I was like, so are you more attracted to penises? Because this looks to me like a full-grown woman who has a beautiful body that any like real full-grown man would be attracted to. So you're either attracted to, if you're not attracted to vulvas, you're attracted to either a penis or prepubescent children. Either way, it's not sounding too good, right? It's not sounding too good. And I'm really sorry for whatever woman you're married to and carried your children for you, that you're this disgusted by female anatomy. That's not a normal heterosexual male response. Okay, like the true heterosexual men that I know are like just so intoxicated by female anatomy and think that it's gorgeous and want to fucking wrap themselves in it. I'm sorry to hear that you're disgusted by it. Sounds like you don't really like women all that much. And, you know, maybe you're attracted to something else, and that's okay, King. You know, go ahead, live your best life, but like keep it a bean about who you are. She said 4 months ago, after talking about, okay, so I do have some clitoral stimulation. Sometimes I masturbate and I experience what I call an orgasm, some faint muscular contractions. But it's nothing like the tremendous sensitivity and wonderful juicy orgasms I had before the clitoral surgery at 12. It's so sad. I would say that the clitoral recession and vaginoplasty decreased my responsiveness by a factor of 5 or 10. 4 months ago, I finally got some of my medical records from Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago. They are shocking. The surgeon who removed my clitoris summarized the outcome as, quote, tolerated well. I hadn't made much sense of these records until my recent visit to my gynecologist at Barnes Hospital in St. Louis. You know what's really sad? So someone says all vulva, or Mandy says all vulva are beautiful. I once made a giant one for art. My friend privately came up and thanked me for making the inner labia extra large because she had struggled with judgment about hers. Even like the fact that a lot of like lingerie makers, like the panties and stuff, and like make like underwear that's so uncomfortable for women who actually have like full developed like labia and things like that. And it's like yeah, and it's like, again, that's like really should be like a sign of like fertility and womanliness, and like, you know, normal people, like, you know, men would, like people who are attracted to women would be attracted to that. And it's, you know, it's really sad too, me being insecure as a kid about how my vulva looked. Like, I'm not like, you know, as I got older, I like denied myself pleasure. I would like discourage my boyfriend from like giving me oral sex because I was ashamed and I was embarrassed and I was afraid of like what he would think and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, how sad, how fucking sad. I would like kind of make excuses and stuff. And it's like, thank God. I mean, like, God, I fucking am so glad, like, reconnecting in my body and, like, and I think through connecting with other women made me love and appreciate my body more, and having this, like, these deep connections with women and caring for other women, taking care of women has made me, like, appreciate and love myself as a woman so much more. And in doing so, I feel like I'm such a better partner to like my boyfriend. I'm such a better lover, you know? It's like, I'm sure it was like a terrible lover if I'm sitting there and I'm so uncomfortable and I won't accept pleasure and I won't just fully like be, you know, I'm like trying to turn the lights off and stuff and not let them see me and like cover up my stomach because I thought it was fat. Like try to like hide trying to hide during sex is so sad. It's so sad, and I'm so grateful. Like, I don't do any of that stuff anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I will sit on your face. Like, I will fucking, like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, you know, dance for you, fucking let you, like, just, like, envelop your, like, you and me, and vice versa. You know, I'll fucking put I'll sit on your fucking face and, like, put it right on top. You know what I mean? And it's like, and it's just like, thank God. And I'm so much happier now. And I'm so much more. And I realized I was probably getting really sexually frustrated in my past relationships. And it was, like, manifesting into a lot of, like, turmoil. And now that I'm being like so fully sexually satisfied and allowing that to happen, because I don't need to, like, deny myself anymore, because I'm, like, worried about what he thinks, and I'm internalizing all these comments that I've heard from other men about women, and I don't do that. Now it's like I can allow myself to, you know, I orgasm in every sexual contact I have now. I used to be like, oh, if I can have an orgasm once in a while, like, that's a win. You know, as long as he comes, I'm good. No. Now I don't ever, like, you know what I mean? It's like, or like, you know, whatever. Like, sometimes I'll just give oral, unless I'm, like, just, like, you know, giving oral sex and whatever. Then you can, or you make me come afterwards, whatever. But it's like, sex is not over until we both came. You know what I mean? And thank God I'm with mature men who not only, like, agree with that, but, like, wouldn't want it any other way either. You know, it's so sad how many men don't even ask women if they came once they come. And it's just like, oh, I came. Oh, like, you know, how was that for you, babe? And it's, like, not good because I clearly didn't come, dickhead. You know what I mean? Like, if your man isn't checking in with you and, like, making sure that, you know, you came. And I'm sorry, women need to stop telling themselves that, oh, well, I can't orgasm through sex. It's just something I can't do. I'm sorry. I don't believe that that's true. I used to never orgasm during sex, and I think it's because, A, we don't know our bodies, and we're not giving men the opportunity or demanding that they, you know, a lot of men want to know, honestly, and if he doesn't, he's a scumbag. But it's like men need time to really learn our bodies. Like, female pleasure is more complex than men. It doesn't mean that it's irrelevant. It means that it takes time, and it's like the more and the closer that you get with each other and actually take the time to, like, learn about how to have an orgasm during sex, whether it's oral sex or even vaginal sex. And remember, I've even heard women, like some rad femmes, basically saying that the vaginal orgasm is a myth, and this is why, like, we should discourage women from heterosexual sex, and that is bullshit. The clitoris extends into a whole, like, rich network of nerves that wrap around the vagina, which grips the penis. So I'm sorry, vaginal orgasms absolutely are real, and I have them all the time. And it's like, if I don't come during sex, then, like, I'm gonna, like, come during oral sex. You know what I mean? And it should never just be, like, an acceptable, normal thing that women are just being like, yeah, like, you know, I didn't come again, but that's okay. Like, it felt pretty good. Like, that's literally how I used to be when I was, like, a teenager in my early 20s. And that's so sad. And I feel like I was just sexually frustrated all the time. You know what I mean? Like, and it just manifests into, like, how can you really look at your husband and feel like he cares about you if you're never having an orgasm with him, and if he's never making sure that happens, and it's not just him, or you're not even allowing the space for that to happen because you've internalized so much of, like, the misogyny and the insecurity and the hatred of women and the hatred of women's bodies, right? And even like these, like, homosexual, transsexual, I'm sorry, but all these, like, you know, who are supposedly, oh, more connected with women, they call us fish. That's their nickname for cis women, for real women, actual adult human females. They call us fish. They hate female genitalia. They say it's disgusting. They say, you know, they're disgusted by it and all this sort of stuff. Female genitalia, and I'm sorry, I actually don't think that's true. I think a lot of it has to come to do with with jealousy. Female genitalia is some of the most, like, one of the most gorgeous creations on earth. It's the source of so much pleasure. If you can give, you know, your woman pleasure, I mean, you can unlock so many gifts in her that will give back to you. You know, it's like one of the, like, I just, it's so sad how many women cut themselves out of pleasure because of these stupid things like this. And anyway, it manifests into how they treat people with disorders, with DSDs. So she said, anyway, sorry for that like tangent, but let's see. So anyway, so she said, okay, 4 months ago, I finally got some of my medical records from Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago. They are shocking. The surgeon who removed my clitoris summarized the outcome as, quote, tolerated well. I hadn't made much sense of these records until a recent visit to my gynecologist at Barnes Hospital in St. Louis. I was referred to her 3 years ago by the University of Illinois pediatric endocrinologist to determine whether I would need the vaginoplasty. This was all news to me, as I'd never been informed that I would ever need more surgery. As it turned out, my gynecologist concluded that I had sufficient vagina, and she recommended only pressure dilation. So again, they were going to give, vaginoplasty to a newborn baby or a child. I'm sorry, I guess she was 12 at the time. Again, these are all experimental. They don't create real genitals. So why the hell are we doing them? The only time it makes sense to do them is if there's like urogenital deformities, where it makes it so that they can't properly eliminate urine, right? Or they're spraying everywhere because of something to do with like the urethra. Okay, then it makes sense. Or you have to like build up maybe some of the tissues, but like as minimal as possible. And we have to do a much better job of risk benefit analysis, and it looks weird is not a fucking good like reason for medical indication. Okay, period. Sorry. Anyway, just about a month ago, I visited the gynecologist for my routine annual physical. She's the only doctor I ever see. This time, when she asked what kind of questions I had, I pulled out my records and asked her to review them with me. She actually spent over an hour with me examining some of my records. One phrase that stuck out in my head was, quote, androgen insensitivity syndrome. So this is somebody who's born male who is male with androgen insensitivity syndrome. It's on the continuum of case. So there's PACE, which is partial androgen insensitivity syndrome, and CASE, complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. And it means that they have XY46 XY karyotype. So that's their chromosomes. And so when the Y chromosome activated the SRY gene, which I think is like what, at like week 6 or something like that, during the fetal development, I think it was the anti-Malarian hormone is released, but testosterone is not able, so there are no receptors for the testosterone, so it's not able to be metabolized the way that it's meant to be, so that it cannot have an impact on the tissues the way that it's meant to have an impact. And there's varying degrees of it. So it's from partial androgen insensitivity syndrome, meaning that some testosterone is able to be metabolized into the DHT, the dihydrotestosterone. Or if that doesn't happen, if it's not able to be metabolized, it's like what happens with women. It aromatizes into estrogen. This is how men are able to develop estrogen without having ovaries. So all men have estrogen, just as all women have testosterone. And in men, the way that they're able to make estrogen is that testosterone, if it's whatever testosterone is not metabolized, aromatizes into estrogen. And that's the case with partial androgen insensitive individuals and complete androgen insensitive individuals. They are male, but they actually do look female, and they have like a shallow vagina and stuff like that. But it sounds like this person had partial because with, having such an enlarged, so basically a micro penis, which could also look like an enlarged clitoris. And again, there could be, some overlap because we do start off with this sort of same neutral phenotype, right? Humans all start out with the same, like sort of like a neutral female body type. But I mean, they say it's like starts off as female, but it's like kind of not, because it does require that you have like another X to fully develop. And it's, it develops. So if you get a Y chromosome, so obviously everybody knows the way that your sex determination, it happens at conception. And it's every female's ovum, all female gametes are X. Male gametes are Y. Okay? So women carry only X gametes. The eggs are only X. Men produce roughly equal, mostly equally Y spermatozoa and X spermatozoa. If an X meets the egg, if a sperm carrying an X chromosome meets an egg, then you have an XX fetus, and that's a female. If a male sperm, a sperm with male chromosomes meets the egg, then you have an XY phenotype. And in both cases, they then begin to develop into male or female. And problems can arise during this time. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're non-binary. That doesn't disrupt the fact that we still exist on a binary, and that is determined at conception. In the case of PACE and CASE individuals, CAIS or PAIS, it happens during the activation of the SRY gene, and once testosterone starts to happen and they're not able to properly metabolize the testosterone, and it can create a very female phenotype, right? It can create, a shallow vagina. However, they say, oh, they have female genitals. No, because female genitalia includes ovaries, fallopian tubes, a cervix, and a uterus, none of which is present because they don't have, because I guess the anti-Müllerian hormone, and so let's see. All right, let's see. So just because there are times when disorders happen during development, it does not mean suddenly that we have this intersex. Intersex is a misnomer. We shouldn't ever be using that term because it gives the idea that some people are sort of like half woman, half male. No, you're either XX, XY. There are people with X. Anybody who has a Y anywhere, the Y determines a male. Okay? You can have two X's. You can be XXY or XXX. There's different things, but the second that a Y is present, you're a male. And there's just a range of development, and it doesn't have to look perfect, and we should just be okay with accepting that sometimes things develop differently and have mutations and things that happen, and it's okay. It's okay. We don't need everybody to look exactly the same, and we don't need to go and intervene on people's bodies, unless it's absolutely necessary for it to function. So it says, then just under a week ago, I received a package by mail from a friend whom I had confided some very sketchy details about my surgery. Natalie Anger's article about ISNA, Intersexual Healing, New York Times Week in Review section, Sunday, February 4th, 1996, and the winter 95-96 issues of ISNA's newsletter, Hermaphrodites with Attitude, had crossed her desk, and she realized that this might be related to my situation. In fact, she was absolutely right. I couldn't believe it as I sat there reading stories that I could have written. After reading these articles and others that I located in the ISNA website, I now suspect that I have partial androgen insensitivity syndrome. The medical team lied to me about removing my ovaries. They actually removed my testes. I know from my records that I have a 46 XY karyotype. I am horrified about what has been done to me and the conspiracy of silence and lies. I am filled with grief and rage, but also relief to finally believe that maybe I'm not the only one. My doctor told me that once that I wasn't the only one, but I never got to meet any of them. I am full of anticipation, fear, and craziness at the thought that through ISNA, I may finally be able to speak with and meet others who share these experiences. Yeah, and then there was another one that I think is important for us to read that I wanted to. these stories, I think, they're important, and it's important that we, get a full handle on this, because that's always been like the big gotcha. The intersex thing has been like, the big gotcha used by, again, and I implore everybody, and just suggest that everybody change the terminology from using the term TRA, which stands for trans privilege activists, to TPA, which is trans privilege activists. And I would like to let everybody know, because I've heard other people advocating. I'm so glad, but I did start that. They're not trans rights activists. Trans rights, they're not advocating for rights. They're advocating for special privileges for trans identifying people. All right, so this was, I think, a really good one too. So again, this is from Interact Advocates for Intersexual Youth, and it just shows, like, the fact as early as the mid 90s we were still talking about intersex, and it just shows how much we're still learning about these things. Hold on, I need like a little roach clip. I've done a lot of healing. I am a licensed therapist, and I've used my experience of being male to suffer unnecessarily by treatment for being intersexual to make patient advocacy an important aspect of my work. I've healed a great deal through my involvement with the cancer community. And that's like another thing, where I was able to help people avoid unnecessary medical interventions. You know what the saddest thing in the world is? I cried for like 2 weeks after I read this. I don't think I had to get pelvic radiation. And it sucks, because it's like, if there's like probably like one thing in my life that like I could go back and change, it would have been the decision to get radiation. I don't think I needed it. I was declared no evidence of disease after my my tumorectomy, or whatever, they cut out my tumor, and I did the chemotherapy, and I think that would have been sufficient. And they're now saying that my stage cancer can almost, like, for sure safely forego doing radiation, and I wouldn't have been sterilized. I wouldn't have been, a lot of things. Like, I know, like, it probably sounds crazy. I probably would have liked to have more kids. And it's like, just a lot of things, it impacted. I'm now in menopause. I have a lot of issues with my, like, endocrinology, and all of it came from this fucking radiation. And it's like, also my, like, life expectancy is now going to be lower, and my chances of secondary radiation related cancers is high. And it's like, it just sucks. So it's like, we need to, like, it's like they're just so cavalier about the way that they put. Now, with cancer, it's like, I understand. It's like, there was a time with the type of cancer that I had was almost like a for sure death sentence, and they're still just trying to. But it's like, this, the way that our medical system is, it's like, it's all about, like, they don't try to figure out ways that they can reduce interventions. You know what I mean? It's just like, ways that we can go and men like to go and, like, try to just fiddle with things. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's not necessary. Sometimes it's okay to, like, it's just like the arrogance of thinking that we know enough to make these just profound decisions. I'm not talking about the cancer thing, but it's like with these DSDs and stuff, like, why are we rushing to operate on these children that we don't fully understand what's going on with them? Let's see. I've healed a great deal. So this is about a man who had a DSD from the cancer community, where I was able to help people avoid unnecessary medical interventions. And I have studied sex and sexuality, which has been an important element in coming to a place where I can help others, rather than feeling like I was the only one in the world. It also helped me to realize that I could have successful relationships, including sexual relations. A lot of the defeat and depression that I felt growing up left me when I realized that doctors and parents were wrong. They believed I could not be happy without normal genitals. When I understood that wasn't true, my life completely changed. This is why, like, their experience is honestly, if anything, it proves how, like, early medicalization is terrible. And we should never medicalize children, because they're still growing into themselves. And a lot of times it happens just to like please parents who, you know, want something normal. Because again, I think the one thing that we have to remember too, part of the reason why I think some parents take their kids being different so hard is, especially when it's something like either like sexuality or how the kid is because like they kind of see it as their own failure. They're kind of like, well, what was wrong with us? Or does it mean that, you know, me and my husband are genetically incompatible, or me and my wife are genetically incompatible? And it's just like they see it as some sort of failure of either their own genetics or, you know, and that's why that's like the rush. And I think to alleviate that discomfort and that, like, you know, fear and you know, insecurity, it's like they want to do whatever they can to sort of like make the kids seem normal as possible, you know. And they'll say, oh, it's because I don't want them to go through adversity. But it's a lot about parents and their own insecurity, you know, and what that means about them as people if they had a child that's like this. And so that's why, you know, we need to rush to go try to rectify everything. And it's like it's just sad. It's like, you know, it's just, if we could just reassure parents that like it's okay, you have a child that, you know, is within the spectrum of normal, just, you know, not at the center of the bell curve. It's just an outlier, and it's okay. It's like, it's really okay. A lot of the depression. Okay. They believed I could not be happy without normal genitals. When I understood that wasn't true, my life completely changed. It was my mother's job to shuttle me back and forth. It was my mother's job to shuttle me back and forth to the hospital. I've had 16 surgeries on my genitals, and they performed 10 operations by age 10, pretty regularly once a year. It's pretty hard on a father if his son is sexually different, and it's still not easy for my father to discuss. It was hard on my mother, a typical 50s mom who didn't work. She was the one who had to deal with these teams of high-powered doctors all the time. And again, it's another reason why we say that women should just stay out of hospitals, because it is really hard as a woman, you know, and you're a lay person, you're not a medical expert, to say no to a doctor when they're trying to push an intervention onto you that you don't want. And they'll stand over you. And again, you're not in a good headspace when you're in labor. You're trying to focus on your body and what to do. And the stress hormones are so bad for labor. It is so bad to stress a woman out in labor. It is the most cruel and dangerous thing you can do. And that's all they do the whole time. And so again, it's why it's also hard, I think, for some of these parents to advocate truly for their children, especially when you have these pro-LGBTQ medicalist doctors who are like foaming at the mouth to get their hands on a trans kid. And you get over, you know, these I'm sorry, but some of these like weaker parents get overwhelmed, and I understand, you know, and it's hard, you know, especially when, and like you think about women who have maybe like, who have been told their whole life that they're like weak, or that their opinion is useless, or that they're useless, you know, or that they're dumb, or that they're just inept in some way. And it's like they're so like disempowered and beat down to fully advocate for their kids or to trust their own instincts. You know, maybe women who have less of an education, and the way that these doctors talk to you as if they're these like gods of knowledge and wisdom, and you're just some like blithering idiot fool, you know, and you have like your input doesn't matter, you know. Or it's like a mother who speaks English as a second language, or a mom who is in an abusive relationship where she's constantly being emotionally torn down by her husband every single day, or her, you know, boyfriend every single day, and being told that she's stupid, and, you know, God, you always fuck everything up. Or maybe it's a woman whose parents did that to her whole life, you know, and it hasn't had a chance to like fully actualize in herself and in her like ability to advocate. And it's like those are the parents who end up like falling victim to these doctors who will just stand over you, and they don't, you guys don't have the same like concerns at heart. As a mother, you love your child and you want the best for your child and your family. They have other competing motivations and concerns and interests, right? They don't love your child. They're not, when they go home, they're going home to their family. They're not bringing your baby home. They're not seeing what your baby goes through all day, every day. the life that how that's going to affect that baby's life for the rest of their life, right? You do, though. That's why, like, parents have to advocate. We need to keep women away from these predatory doctors too. Call these psychotic doctors out. That's why any detransitioner, I don't care if you were the biggest TPA in the world and you were so cringe and all this sort of stuff, do not let them tell you that you need to sort of just shrink away in shame and that it's nobody's fault but your own, that the doctors did this to you. No, put them on blast. Put all their asses on blast. Sue the fuck out of all of them. You know, yes, you were wrong too by joining in and demanding it and all this sort of stuff, but that doesn't excuse them and what they did. And chances are they're going to continue to be emboldened to pressure other people. Do not let people make you feel like you don't have the right to call out people who enacted this harm on you just because, you know, you agreed to it and you were down with it and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, you have your role in it, but so the fuck do they. Okay? And put them on blast. And don't let anyone make you feel like, oh, you're just hurting other trans people by doing that and you should take responsibility for your own actions. No, this is the best way to take responsibility, and I'm going to say this now. They always say, oh, you take responsibility for your, you know, what you did and what you regret. You're right. They're right. You should take responsibility. You know what is taking responsibility? It's going after every doctor that was complicit in the medical abuse of a child or a mentally ill patient. That's how you take responsibility. You step up, right? You step up and you hold everybody accountable, and you do the work you have to do, and you go file the paperwork you have to file, you make the phone calls that you got to make, you go stand to give the speeches to whoever the hell you got to give the speech to, knock down the doors of whoever you got to knock down so it doesn't happen to another child. That to me is taking full responsibility for the decisions that you made. That's how you can honor and make sure that this, you know, what happened to you didn't happen in vain, because they were complicit in doing that to you. Don't let these people. No. The biggest thing that they're terrified of right now is this sort of backswing that's coming, the day of reckoning. These doctors are terrified of it, but they're so addicted to the quick buck that they can get, that's why they're keeping it going as long as it can, the gravy train, as long as they can profit off of it. And they know back in their mind there's that sinking fear, that feeling that there is a day of reckoning coming, and we need to bring it. We need to bring it all the way. It was hard on my mother, a typical 50s mom who didn't work. She was the one who had to deal with these teams of high-powered doctors all the time. She told me what it was like when I was born. The doctor didn't say anything. She looked down and saw the two nurses look down, avoiding eye contact with her. My parents weren't allowed to see me until the doctors had performed lots of tests and had made up their mind to assign me. How evil is that? How evil is that to steal the first minutes of a baby's life from its mother, who's sitting there waiting for someone to hand her baby back? How evil is it that we put brand new mothers in a space where they have to sit there and say, hey, can I have my baby now? Can I have the baby that I just Sir, would you mind passing me my baby back? Bro, it makes me insane. It's like one of the reasons why I like got to a point where like I just couldn't work in the hospitals anymore, even though those are the women who needed our advocacy the most. And I had to take a break because I'm so consistently disgusted and insane about how new mothers are treated. It makes me want to fucking throw up, and it makes me want to start a fight with everybody. And I had this number one rule about never ever like creating like big conflict in front of, you know, women unless like I have to really protect them. But it's like there's times where I have to step out there and like I really want to just like get into it with some of these doctors, like how the fuck dare you, or these nurses and stuff who just disrespect women in their most precious. So do you know the things they like women with dementia will forget everything, but they'll be able to tell you about their birth experience. It's so written on us. It's etched on our hearts forever. It's such a defining moment in a woman's life. And we just we treat it like it's nothing. Putting a new mother in a position to be like, give me my baby back. How sick. It's like, back the fuck up and get out of here, and I'll be back in like a few days. That's why after that, like with the midwifery model, like the mom doesn't even go into the doctor until like, what is it, like week 6 or something of like the baby's life, and it's like, I can't even imagine taking the baby away from a brand new mother and be like, yeah, we're gonna go fiddle with it for a while. You know what I mean? We leave them alone for like 2 hours, and then we finally like do some, like tests and things like that. But we'll come back. We come back, I think it's like on the 3rd day, to finally do all the stuff that they always do right then at like minute 1 of birth. And it's all about just like squeezing everything in. None of it is time sensitive. None of it's really time, unless the baby's APGARs are like totally awful and the baby's limp and you need to like do a resuscitation protocol. But even a lot of that can be done on the mother's chest. There's very little reason to actually clamp the cord and pull the baby away and rush them off. But they like doing it over there. They don't want you involved or asking questions. She saw the nurses look down, avoiding eye contact with her. My parents weren't allowed to see me until the doctors had performed lots of tests and had made up their mind to assign me as male. My childhood was filled with pain, surgery, skin grafts, and isolation. I remember when school vacation came, the other kids went somewhere fun. I went to the hospital during vacation so I wouldn't miss too much school. Let me make this... Often not yet healed from the latest surgery. Sometimes I went back to school with tubes coming out of me and stitches and scars, and I couldn't walk well. They made arrangements for me to use the teacher's restroom. I have no idea what they told the teachers. What he's going to explain, he has nearly identical procedures to what they're doing to trans-identifying boys, and it is so horrific and sad. And this is the same experience that a lot of these trans-identifying, kids and young men are going to go through, where there's the continuous need for revision surgery after revision surgery and fixing things, because we're trying to create things that we can't make, that we don't have the technology to actually create. Sometimes I went to school with tubes coming out of me and stitches and scars, and I couldn't walk well. They made arrangements for me to use All right, I didn't know any other children who were like me. I asked doctors questions all the time, but they could never tell me anything except to be careful and don't complain. They never told me that there were any other children like me. Other children went on vacation. I went to the hospital. Children, of course, are quick to pick up on differences, and they were very cruel to me. I felt like a freak, an embarrassment, and a burden to my family. But I got the message that I had to pretend everything was okay. The privacy of my hell was something that I had to deal with on my own, and I was very withdrawn and depressed. By the time I was a teenager, I was hopeless, suicidal. I thought that was a good way out. I let out a little of what was going on with me to a friend's mother who was a psychotherapist. She got me in to see somebody who evaluated me and saw that I was seriously suicidal. Early on, I had gotten very, very strong warnings to not let other children see me with my clothes off, and particularly not to let them see my genitals. And of course, and to, again, this is a man, or this was a little, a boy at the time. And again, it's like we also have such a, just like we really do, like, we do hate men in our own ways too. And it's like, and if a man, doesn't have like a large, one time I overheard like some like moms talking about like there's like sons' penises, and we're like being like, oh, I'm glad that like his seems like it's gonna be big and stuff, and I just wouldn't, and she's like, and I'm not trying to be weird, I just wouldn't want them to go through that, growing up with like a small penis. I was like, what the hell? I was kind of like, okay. And it's like, it's like the worst thing in the world is to be like, either like a soft man or a man who doesn't act, totally masculine, or have like, our obsession with like huge male genitals and things like that. And if he's not fully endowed, then he's not really a man and all this sort of stuff. And it's like to the point when you need to like either surgically like alter it, or it's better if you just become a woman. And it's like, how about we just like be okay with that some men are like this and it's okay. Early on, I had gotten very strong warnings not to let the other children see me with my clothes off, and particularly not to let them see my genitals. Of course, it was pretty easy for the other kids to pick up on the fact that for years I didn't use the kids' restroom, or that I couldn't walk well when I came back from vacation. Oh, that's sad. I was lucky I didn't have to expose my genitals to other children in elementary school. By junior high, the psychiatrist helped me make it possible for me to participate in mandatory gym classes, but not have to shower with other boys. They would have had a great deal of trouble making sense or of understanding what they would have seen. The doctors insist that you can't let a child go to school with ambiguous genitals, but the genitals they created were certainly strange looking. The doctors insist that you can't let a child go to school with ambiguous genitals. Again, and it's like there's just this like very narrow range of like what males have to look like, what they have to be like, and if they're not that, then they're just a female. As if we're just like a dumping ground for men who don't fall within this like archetype ideal that we have of masculinity, both, physical and psychological, right? Each year they performed surgery on me, and I watched and felt how rapidly the surgery would break down each time. This is important. Again, it just goes to the heart of how nonsensical these genital surgeries are, and how incapable we still are to even perform on genitals for pretty much any reason. That's why these trans surgeries are insane. The fact that we're funding them is insane. It's all one big experiment, and it's going horribly, horribly wrong. Each year they performed surgery on me, and I felt how rapidly the surgery would break down each time. They couldn't have missed it either. There's no reason for some of the work that they did on me outside of arrogance or incompetence. Sounds a lot like the gender surgeons. I spent many years in surgery whose purpose was to make me pee at the end of my penis. This is so interesting because they did to him pretty much what they do to these trans-identifying females. If you ask any TIFF when she talks about like having phalloplasty, those penises, those like arm skin fruit roll-ups that they sew onto their pubic bone can't even be used to penetrate a woman. It was like I can understand if maybe they could actually be in the role of the man during sex, and I was like, okay, I could see why some people really it doesn't even really function that way. It's like the number one goal is that they can stand up to pee. Like that's like the sort of like the highest goal of like manhood is being able to stand to pee. It's like so dumb. Like, who cares? I spent many years in surgery whose purpose was to make me pee at the end of my penis. If they had just left my urinary meatus, the pee hole where it was, at the base of my penis, right by my scrotum, I would have avoided at least 12 of those surgeries. So his like urinary meatus, like the point where his urethra like opens, was in like the wrong place. But it was fine. It was actually fine. It just meant that he had to sit down to pee. And they were so afraid of how like people were going to like view him because of this. They should have just left it alone. If they had just left my urinary meatus pee hole where it was, at the base of my penis, right by my scrotum, I could have avoided at least 12 of those surgeries. And it's not just my genitals. They would take large pieces of tissue from other parts of my body to try to create a tube of skin for me to pee through, and those areas are scarred as well. It's the same exact thing that they do during phalloplasty. They literally get this little piece of like, I forget like where they take the skin for the urethra, but it's not actual urethral skin, and it's really dangerous because unless you do like the electrolysis with the hair and a hair follicle remains and it's able to grow hair inside of the urethra, it causes so many problems. Also, think about how sensitive and fragile like the urethral skin is. And imagine like scarring it up by cutting it and stretching it, right? And causing it to be inflamed, and then it has all this scar tissue. How difficult it would make it to urinate. You know, think about, and for any woman who's ever had a UTI, like knowing how painful they are, and you realize how fragile this part of your body is. And what happens is the scar tissue creates strictures meaning that like basically the opening is so closed, if you either totally or partially, so that the urine can't properly eliminate and becomes like a medical emergency. There are so many things that go wrong. Phalloplasty is one of the most dangerous surgeries on the planet, and I think it's dangerous for both males and females because of all the stuff that they do to the urethra and all this other stuff. The tube that most men pee through is not made of skin. It's made of special kind of tissue that can handle contact with urine. And again, urine is very acidic. If anybody gardens, I'm like a big gardener. I have a big vegetable garden in my backyard. I have a big pumpkin and watermelon patch, and I like grow trees and stuff. And so anybody who garden knows how acidic urine is. If you have like a dog or other wild animals that pee, I mean, even on a grass, for example, if you have a dog who pees in the same patch of grass all the time, the grass starts to die because of how acidic urine is. Our skin cannot handle just being exposed to it over and over and over because of those acids. The internal of our urethra is lined with tissue that is built to withstand those pH levels. It's made of special kind of tissue that can handle contact with urine and be continuously moist and warm without breaking down and becoming infected. The tubes that are made for me out of skin from other parts of my body broke down over and over, and I regularly get bladder infections, and I still have to sit to pee. I have never been without fistula. Same thing that happens with vaginoplasty for these trans-identifying males and trans-identifying females who get the phalloplasty and metoidoplasty, right? So fistula is basically a hole. It's a reason why like some of these trans-identifying males are pooping out of their neo-vagina, because there's like a hole between like the wall between the so-called neo-vagina, the hole that they made out of the inverted penis, and their rectum. So poop ends up being pushed into the so-called like, vaginal part. It's like, yeah, the tubes, hold on. It's made of so the tube that most men pee through is not made of skin. So the urethra is not made of skin. It's made of a special kind of tissue that can handle contact with urine and be simultaneously moist and warm without breaking down or becoming infected. The tubes that they made for me out of skin from other parts of my body broke down over and over, and I regularly get bladder infections, and I still have to sit to pee. I have never been without fistulae, holes in the penis where the surgery is broken down, and I've had the entire tube replaced twice with large skin grafts. If they had just let me pee sitting down, neither I nor my family would have had to suffer all of that. The expense, the pain, the repeated surgeries, the drugs, the repeated tissue breakdowns and urine leaks. I would have been just fine to have a penis that peed out of the bottom instead of the top and didn't have the feeling of being damaged, I guess. The promise that you will be able to pee standing up is just plain false, especially when the urinary meatus is at the bottom of the penis. Such a large skin graft can't heal with the blood supply that is available in the genitals. I believe that they know that, but it seems that genital appearance and the promise of normalcy are more important to young patients than to young parents than a clear-headed acceptance of reality. And I think that this is so true. So apt and so true for these trans housing by proxy parents. And then I just had one more reading. Let's see if it's like worth looking at. Okay. My beautiful clitoris. Oh, this one's sad. Very similar experience to the other. I think this might be the same writer. My Beautiful Clitoris by Annie Green. 32 years have passed since my clitoris was taken from me. Though I was too young to be able now to recall the event. Oh no, this is a different writer. This is just so sad. Even though I was too young to be able to recall the event, I feel that I will be grieving the loss for the rest of my life. Every day, my thoughts touch on what it would be like, what it would feel like, what it would look like if this had not happened to me. I have only one connection to the clitoris that I was born with, a pathologist's report on the bit of tissue that the surgeon sent him for analysis. This is what was written in the notes. It says the specimen consists of a soft pinkish piece of tissue measuring 2.8 centimeters in length and approximately 1 centimeter in average outside diameter. The distal 1.2 centimeter of the specimen is covered with wrinkled pinkish tissue resembling prepuce. Section shows the specimen to consist of 2 soft pinkish white, somewhat shiny half cylinders, each outlined by a thin rim of shiny whitish tissue. The entire complex is covered by a thin rim of soft shiny pink tissue. It sounds beautiful, doesn't it? I imagine it, my clitoris lying on the cold metal specimen tray. I can't help but think how sad such an alive, vascular, beautiful, sensitive organ removed from the warm body of this precious child, my body. How tragic that this little child would grow up into a sexual being who will never know orgasm. It to me, it's horrific. I think like orgasm and like sexual like connection are such an important part of the human experience. I say this of the adult experience, and I say this over and over again. Sex is what makes us into mothers. You know, sex is what bonds us to our husbands and our wives. You know, it's like sex is what allows us, you know, to enter the pathway to grandmotherhood. I mean, it's you know, it's like orgasm and masturbation, and it helps you. It's like the root of so much like female creativity and human creativity and like, you know, love. It's like the expression of love with someone that you love, who you're so close to and you give your body to, and to just destroy that in somebody. It's so cruel. It's so evil. I can't like. So that it looks normal, and we act like that's just like a minor side effect for what they're doing with these, you know, trans kids. And again, anytime I say trans, it's just about trans kids, right? It's like trans identifying children. It's so sad. Or really trans identified children, meaning they don't even identify themselves as trans. It's like being imposed upon them and they just follow along. Let's see. It sounds beautiful, doesn't it? I imagine it, my clitoris lying on the cold metal specimen tray. I can't think of how sad such an alive, vascular, beautiful, sensitive organ removed from the warm body of this precious child, my body. How tragic that this little child would grow into a sexual being who will never know orgasm. How heartbreaking that so many years of this child's life would be filled with anguish, confusion, and shame. I am so glad to have found ISNA. Sometimes I think it saved my life. I wouldn't have known otherwise what to do with all this. Before ISNA, I, like others, have not come to know, believed I was alone, the only one to have been treated this way. It's really sad. Yeah, so again, it's like the same story. It's like so we knew all of this to be true, and it sounds like we've known for a long time. And the fact that they still, so we already, you know, had a lot of children and young adults and people with disorders of the sexual development who have been experimented on. I think at first they tried experimenting on them, and there's just not enough of them, and they realized that they could expand that market into creating trans people, this new category of people that they're allowed to profit off of and experiment on, destroy their bodies. So there's really no excuse for why something like Jazz Jennings ever happened, because it sounds like they've been trying to do this to people for years, like operate on their genitals, and it hasn't been working out. They've known for a long time that this doesn't work. And it shows how cavalier the attitude is, the arrogance, the utter medical arrogance, that they continue to try to push this on the healthy bodies of physically healthy patients. This is a medical scandal that I really believe will be studied for generations to come once we finally are able to see how sick and insane this is. It'll be like future civilizations will look back and be like, wow, how could they ever allow that to happen? How did that happen? And I pray to God that they do, so that this never happens again in history. It is just, it's insane. But anyway, let's see. All right, guys. I think that's all for today. Yeah, Mandy says intersex DSD activism is legit. We need to stop removing critical tissue. Totally. For these like pointless just like superficial reasons. You know what I mean? That it's yeah. I don't know how that we're going along with this. I agree her perspective of being in the trenches with the women community, women and children. Susie Glucksman says, billionaire Tim Martine Rothblatt wrote the book Transgenderism to Transhumanism. It's all experimental. Yeah, we should do like a read through of that. Thanks, Kai. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. And I appreciate all of you guys. Woman, Susie Glucksman, Rory, Maggie May. Maggie May says, 1973 says, some of these people have had to have a few surgeries for repairs and the damage is irreversible. Yeah, like there are, like I said, so there are some times when, surgeries are necessary. Like I said, if you can't fully eliminate urine, and things like that, but it's like, my God, we need to really like be taking a look at what is the risk benefit analysis and what are they taking into account, when they decide to do these surgeries. I know, I love this community too. I love you guys. You guys are the best. Mandy says being able to pee properly has such a huge impact on quality of life. Before having surgery, many people should have to hang out with an incontinent person to understand the risk. I wish I could like this 1,000 times. Again, I was like basically incontinent while I was healing from the surgery on my anus, which is a sphincter, and you cut a piece out of it, it's not going to close properly all the way. Okay? And it's like, yeah, it's embarrassing and it's gross and it's all this sort of stuff and it's horrible. And it's like, thank God I'm young and I do have a strong pelvic floor despite having 4 pregnancies. And that's another reason why I like try to like weight lift and work out and stuff so I can strengthen my pelvic floor so that I'm not like, incontinent. It absolutely impacts your quality of life. Like on so many levels. I can't. Like I can't. It's just so sad. All right, guys. I love you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. You guys are the best. I really appreciate all of you. Yeah. We'll talk tomorrow. Oops. I'll see you later.